Hello. Da da da. I like this. I have a little area. I can wear clothing and sit in the area. Tonight I want to go down a rabbit hole about the God. God. Woo! God. What is your connotation with the word God? This idea of the creator of all life being God. Just saying these words, God, 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 I'm like flown back into being in my teenage years where I dove like headfirst into non-denominational Christianity and Baptist youth groups. I grew up in a Presbyterian church that my parents took me to. My act of rebellion at like 14, 15, 16 was I went from my parents' relaxed church and our kind of relaxed home to like head first into Jesus, 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 Jesus. That's from the altar calls. You cry. Oh, I went with my friends to youth groups because they would invite me to youth camp, and it was just like, man, that experience of Jesus, that experience of God, it really was this like love affair with Jesus and with God, and this deep connection, this emotional experience, this deep touching of the heart, this vulnerability to cry and to put your hands up in the middle of the song, like one little hand, and then like you this, and then but sometimes you're just like, yes Lord, yes Lord, yes, yes Lord, and it just like wooed me right in. A big part of what wooed me in, I was coming from a place of pain. I went through this really intense heartbreak. It was like this 14-year-old fall deeply madly in love, and then his parents tell him he has to move across the country because his dad's getting sent to another Mormon church. That's another thing. When I went to the Baptist youth group and I told them that I wanted to pray for my boyfriend who was moving, they were like, he's Mormon? They have another Bible. And it's really funny because then in the Mormon church, they think that they know the thing. Like they think they're in on the thing. Like Jesus came back, y'all, and he brought all this other tablets about what the real thing is happening, and we're in on that. Meanwhile, you Christians over there don't think we're Christians just because we got extra Christians. We got extra Jesus walking United States. Got marriage in heaven. 14 years old and you're like crazy in love, and your boyfriend tells you that if you become Mormon that you'll get married here, and then you'll be married in heaven. It's like done deal. We didn't quite get to that level, but I did have a little Mormon Bible he gave me, and I had some like parts highlighted. I remember crying on the floor when he first moved away, and he'd given me this giant teddy bear, and I like couldn't even sleep in the bed. I was sleeping on the floor, and I moved the mattress onto the floor, and I was just like cuddling this bear and crying and listening to the mixtape he made me over and over and over. Like that was me seeking comfort. Did they know what was going on? Did you guys know how depressed I was? It was pretty bad. Just so deeply traumatizing for me because my first heartbreak. Anyway, so then I go to this church, and it's like I'd always heard these stories of Jesus and these stories of God, and then it was like this whole other experience where I was being invited into this deeply personal relationship with God. It was intimate, and he saw me and knew every aspect of my heart, and I could be like cleansed of my sin. It fed such a deep need, and then add on to that youth group's freaking fun, and I made these amazing friends, and I felt accepted in this place. Part of this crazy thing when I started going to these church camps is that suddenly there was all this talk about becoming a Christian, and I had never heard that in my Presbyterian church growing up that I'd been going to every Sunday forever and studying the Bible, singing hymns, doing all the like Christian stuff, and then suddenly I'm there and they're like, no, it's because this verse says this. You need to like make this declaration where 2 or more are gathered to become a Christian and get into heaven. I didn't get that memo. Like, it took me a while to figure that out. And at that point, I'd already told everyone at the youth group that, no, I'm a Christian. And then, talk about paranoia, I was like, oh no, I missed my shot to get into heaven because I told them all that I was already a Christian. But I never did the prayer. I didn't do the prayer in front of people publicly. I didn't like get publicly saved. So does that mean I'm never going to heaven? I spent many hours crying upstairs. If you didn't get it already, I'm saying I want to accept you in my heart. I was just hoping it got in, but I didn't know. And then you want to add in sexuality and all that. Like I said, I already told you about the boyfriend at age 14. And sorry, Mom and Dad, if you're watching this video, but we had a little intimacy exploration. We didn't have sex and we didn't go very far. How graphic do I have to be? We did more than kissing. Then he left, heartbroken. I'm getting fully involved in church. And then I had always had this idea of like, yeah, of course I'm gonna wait to have sex till I'm married. But there's like other stuff you can do. People are reading this book, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And I start reading it and my friends were reading it, and like I remember we would talk about it, and it was all about like, if you get to the wedding altar and you've already given little pieces of your heart away, then you have to get to your husband and say, this is all that I have left for you. Now there was this idea that dating was giving our heart away in a way that God didn't want us to before we got married, and that we'd lose something with this future husband, where if we do everything right, here's the messaging I'm getting, if I do every little thing right, then I will get this gold at the end of this rainbow. I will get this golden perfect husband and perfect life and be happy forever. Oh, and we'll also have the best sex ever because I saved myself for him. So we're just like guaranteed awesome, amazing sex in the eyes of God. Woo! Also these experiences when during these different youth groups and church camps where there'd be these altar calls. It's kind of like a drug. Like if you've already, like, what else can you give to God? I remember like in this conversation with my best friend, we'd be sharing about our journeys with Jesus and what we felt conviction about. And because I was always like, what am I convicted about? What do I need to like give up for God? And so I remember when we basically both started sharing about like, I told Jesus today I'm not going to do anything below the belt before marriage. And then another one was like, today I promise God I'm not going to let a guy touch my boobs before marriage. And we kept like just kind of upping the ante of what we're giving up for God to live a life of more purity and devotion to God. So this is what I'm doing at 16 years old, while other people are experimenting with drugs, experimenting with sex, experimenting with drinking, or just like screwing around. I was like, how can I be this most holy version of myself for God? How can I live a life for God? So I think the picture I want to paint for you is that there I am, young teenager, discovering this other way of relating to God, and it nourishes something really deep inside me. It's when I've told people about my background, they immediately make assumptions that I was forced into it by my parents or pressured or something like that, and I go like, no. And in fact, they wanted me to loosen up a little. They were relaxed years later when I started having sex and like drinking. Just thank you for being a little normal. In a way, when I look back, I can feel like, oh, it gave me something so much, but I also had to give up certain things, and I had to give up by taking on this sort of wealth of comfort in the theology that I was diving into, and the ideas about God, and the ideas about purity, and the ideas about basically how to be the best possible Christian and person I could be in order to have this like perfect life blessed by God and get to heaven. There was definitely this sort of trying to get a thing out of it. I wanted to share personally my personal story of really coming from this place of a deep desire and longing to have a relationship with this energy of God. But it came with a lot of ways of being and ideas about the world, which also I barely scratched the surface of those, that came with the whole package. It's been like the past 18 years for me that I've started that I've been like unpacking these different beliefs and trying to know, well, who is God? What is this energy? I hope to share more of those stories with you here on this channel. So for now, I guess I'll just open it up for discussion of this idea of, is that something you experienced growing up? This relationship with God that was this invitation for intimacy, for love, for a really deep, profound connection? Was that a part of your growing up at all? Or, you know, and then how about the different rules and the different ideas about purity and giving things up and this, and basically who you need to be, because coming from this place of being a sinner, like who do you need to be to have this relationship? I guess this is the first of more to come, as I'll be sharing more of my story and these journeys and this exploration into the big G-O-D. So I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and like and subscribe and share and all that good stuff. Okay, thanks.